how to wrap that thing up.
Yeah, what's going on, everyone? This is the Philly Experience Podcast. I'm Tanner Gilmartin, and of course, Max Gretzula and Tire Hood joining me as well on this first day of October. October came up on us fast, guys. It's, as they say on social media, spooky season, and it's right. This is like, for me, the meat of football right here. 3 games in, you're really starting to determine, who's real, who's not, who's falling down the standings, who's climbing up. And we are lucky this season, guys, to be talking about our Philadelphia Eagles, 3-0 right now, going on to play the Jacksonville Jaguars tomorrow, Sunday, October 2nd, on a rainy day. We got Sixers to talk about, Phillies to talk about, all things around the football sport as a whole, not just the Eagles. But let's start off with this interview that we wanted to talk about, guys. Ben Simmons on the Old Man in the 3 podcast with JJ Redick and Tommy Alter. They had some questions for Ben Simmons. He was kind of, real, I guess you could say, where he was just sitting around a table. They were talking, drinking, cursing. It was kind of interesting to see Ben Simmons in that kind of environment. And I don't know, did this interview, before we dive into the specifics, did this interview as a whole kind of change your guys' opinion about Ben Simmons?
I was kind of hoping going into the interview that it would change my opinion. I truly hoped, guys, that I did not view Ben Simmons with the same anger and frustration as I did before the interview. Unfortunately, I have just as much frustration, maybe even a little bit more with him after the interview. Oh man, we'll get into it though. Go ahead, Max.
I mean, it's the same. It's like Carson Wentz and Ben Simmons. Football side of things, it's just 2 polarizing figures. But I think with Ben Simmons, you think about what he could have accomplished here in Philadelphia if he ever shot the basketball. It's frustrating. I think after the Game 7 where he didn't dunk it like we all thought he should have, didn't really score or shoot really in that fourth quarter, it still haunts us to this day because that team was pretty legit. But, does it change my opinion on him? No. Do I wish he was still able to accomplish those things that, we all set out to do as far as the team goes throughout those years while he was here, of course. But, we get frustrated with him not being able to shoot or not even attempting to shoot. Just the skill set that he brings to the table, I think last year kind of, shown, especially in the playoffs, because listen, for all the stuff he doesn't bring offensively, he brings a ton defensively. He can guard 1 through 5. I think, Philly, we struggled a lot defensively in the playoffs, especially when Embiid missed those first 2 games against the Miami Heat.
See, and you kind of, hit on a little bit of it, Max, when you talked about, some of the things he did. And that was one of the things that he talked about. He talked about the fact that, as Philly fans, it seemed like we overlooked the good things that he did. We overlooked the fact that, yeah, he was a great defender. He's a great, playmaker. He's a great passer. Here's the thing. We never overlooked those things. We always gave credit where credit is due. Any single time you guys came at me about Ben Simmons, and I was always negative about him from day one, and it was mostly you two that were, all about Ben Simmons. You guys always mention those things, and I always mention those things. I'm like, yes, that's good. Yes, he does those things. But there's one thing that separated him from being a good player to a great player, and it's that shooting. And unfortunately, it seems like he's doubled down on that. Like he's still, it's based off of the interview, it still seems like he is still relishing about the things that he does well, instead of still working on that one. And it's really just that one thing. Instead of working on that one thing that holds you back from being possibly the greatest NBA player today, he could possibly take LeBron James's throne. That's how good of a player Ben Simmons is. But unfortunately, that shooting is going to hold him. It's going to continue to hold him back. You kind of shook your head, Tanner.
Yeah, with the LeBron James comparison, I think that's something that especially Max and I, when we're talking about how it's been us two, I'm kind of convincing you on Ben Simmons' his whole Sixers career. I think that's what we were thinking about when he was a Sixer. Like, all right, next year he's going to make that big leap. Next year, next year. And then it just didn't happen. And we were like, okay, time to throw in the towel with Ben Simmons, too. And the way he's acting right now, it just made it easier
Yeah.
for us as fans to be okay with him departing the Sixers. But specifically getting into the interview that happened, I think a week ago now, this was the most we've heard from Ben Simmons since he last played in an NBA jersey, in an NBA game. And in specific moments of this interview, I'm not a doctor, therapist, or anything like that. It just felt like he was kind of going to talking about his mental state of mind and all that throughout the podcast. But when he talked about returning to practice, Max, he talks about how he let Doc Rivers know that he wasn't ready. But then Doc made him go into practice. And then he sort of called him into drills like a minute into practice. He was like, Ben, you're in. And that kind of made Ben Simmons even more mad at the situation that he was now in. It kind of made things worse.
Yeah.
Where he did agree that he did not handle things the right way, but also put the blame on the Sixers as well. Throughout this whole interview, you don't really hear how it was just his fault. It's always someone else's fault as
Right.
well. What were your kind of thoughts on how he thought everything kind of went down with the Sixers?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything with the player, right? I think we all love. I mean, listen, I thought watching him play, running in transition, going coast to coast, dunking, the behind the back passes, all those flashy things that he did. I mean, it was fun to watch, regardless of him not shooting. I think him having him on the team when things were going well was awesome. I mean, watching him and Joel, even though a lot of people said they couldn't work together, myself included, back in the day, but I think what happened was a lot of this stuff, especially after that Game 7 loss to Atlanta a couple years ago, the snowball effect, the crowd, the social media reaction to him, and then, of course, the mental health coming in and playing a factor. And it's just led to one thing after another where it became more about off the court issues rather than, focusing on the court with the basketball things. So, I wish it didn't get to that point because I really did love Ben Simmons a lot. I think it would be different if he could have, regardless of the jump shot, if he shot 20%. I mean, we look at Russell Westbrook, for example, back in his prime, shooting 28% from the 3-point line. I mean, if Ben Simmons makes 2 out of 10, if he shoots 20% and just takes the open shot when it's there, regardless, even if he misses that shot, it's whatever. I mean, just take it. But also, I think the thing that really bothered me was the free throw shooting. He never really improved. He was always around a 55 to 60% free throw shooter. Down late in games, of course, the other team would just hack him and send him to the free throw line. It felt like he would never make 2 out of 2. I think we were always praying for 1 out of 2 from the free throw line. So for me, I think if he were to improve as a free throw shooter and everything else off the floor never came to fruition as far as the mental health and everything like that, I would, even regardless of the 3-point shooting, I would still love to have him on the team. I mean, I think the stuff that he brings to the table right now, when you look at how this roster is built with Tyrese Maxey, James Harden, your backcourt, really, there's no defensive prowess there whatsoever. Tobias Harris really did step up for the most part in the playoffs, just with sheer athleticism, right? 6'7", can really defend either forward position. Obviously, you have Embiid and now PJ Tucker, who will see at age 37 what he has left in the tank. I mean, you look at Tom Brady this year, it seems like he doesn't have much left. I mean, he just hit a wall. Players that hit a wall, and you don't know when it's coming. You don't know when it's coming. So with PJ Tucker, to sign him to a 3-year contract is questionable. But with the Ben Simmons thing, man, I think I'd love to have him here if he would just the off the court things just didn't materialize, which they did.
Yeah. Now, we're getting into when talking about Ben Simmons' return to practice. Doc Rivers Ben Simmons informed Doc Rivers that he was not yet ready, kind of mentally, to be thrown back in to practice like that. And Ben said that Doc made him go in to practice anyway, said he's still going to put him out there. And then a minute into practice, he looks at Ben Simmons. He's like, Ben, get in there. And Ben sort of took that as a personal attack because he's like, you're not doing that to anyone else. Like 1 minute into practice, that's just not reality. Like that's just you're picking on me at that point, is what he thought. And he mentions how, he didn't handle things correctly, but also the team didn't handle things correctly. Not really seeing any personal blame in this interview out of Ben Simmons, saying, that was my fault. He always has to blame someone else as well, is what I'm kind of getting out of this interview. I don't know if you thought the same way. Do you think he kind of, this breakdown of what happened, do you think that was kind of accurate or more just one-sided? What do you think, T?
No,
As
T, don't do this to
T's
me.
frozen on us
Don't do it to
right
me,
here at
T.
the moment.
Need you. Need you, T. Honestly, Tanner, I'll jump in here because I still
Okay.
am not. I think this guy kind of ruled our lives for all of our college years, right? In the city, regardless, Joel Embiid and this whole team. And for me, I think it got to the point last season where you literally have a team that you have expectations coming in. It's an 82 game season grind. And it got to the point where 2 years ago, it's like I'm not watching every single one of these 82 games when you're playing the Magic in February, when you're playing the Raptors in January. Just get me geared up for the postseason. And then they just break our hearts every single year. And it's never like, I think when you look at teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, I think you look at teams like the Golden State Warriors, I think a lot of people just look at talent and they say it'll get the job done. But I think we forget at the end of the day, these guys are human beings, right? These guys are flying for 42 games, city to city to city. It's like they're seeing these guys more than their actual family. And if you don't have that, collective effort, if you don't have that chemistry on and off the floor, because all we're seeing is a 2-hour basketball game. We're not seeing the flights. We're not seeing the locker room talk. I mean, are these guys getting along or not? And I think obviously the Golden State Warriors are great talent. I mean, they're one of the best shooters ever. Same thing with Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. I mean, they have a great roster, but every time you see them in an interview, you see them off the court. I mean, social media, they all look like they're loving it. They're having fun. You see Steph Curry golfing. I mean, it's so free flowing and natural. And I'm not saying that's the main reason why they win these titles every year,
Yeah.
but then you
And
look at the
that is
Sixers
what
team.
social media is. That is what social media
Right,
is.
right,
It's
of
kind of like
course.
a blanket of reality of what really is happening or what they want people
Right.
to see.
But then you see like social media for the Sixers and you see like Maxi's doing his camps and whatnot. But then you see Harden partying and throwing money around for his birthday, throwing a cake in the river, the ocean, wherever it
Yeah.
was. And B just not on social media whatsoever, which is fine. I mean, there's positives and negatives to it, but it just seems like everybody goes their separate ways in the off season. I don't think I mean, I'm guessing they don't talk a ton. And then they come back and then it's back into the same grind. I feel like you need to have that chemistry. You need to these guys are you get to treat them like your brothers and be out text them, hey, what's up? Same thing with the football season. These quarterbacks, they take them down south where the weather's warm, work out with their receivers, build that chemistry. I just don't see that happening with this team in the off season, and I think that contributes to what happens during the regular season.
All right, sorry about that, Phillies. That was my bad. That was my bad.
Go ahead, take it over.
So what happens when we have bad weather? Okay, so you were talking about Ben Simmons and you were talking about the practice in particular and what happened with Doc Rivers. Look, if I'm Doc Rivers, I'm doing the same damn thing. All right, I'm doing the same exact damn thing because let's think about the timeline of what happened leading up to that event. So the team allegedly, and he denied this, but the team allegedly goes out to LA to try to talk to him to try to see where his head's at. He denies it. So that's I don't know who's telling the truth and who's not. Because Embiid on the same podcast said, we did go out to LA and try to talk to him, but he wouldn't talk to us. So that's neither here nor there. I don't know who's telling the truth on that one. But let's just assume that it's true. You have the team, some of your teammates go out there to LA to try to talk to you. And then, you're not showing up for practice. You're not showing up for, workouts, which there's a clause in these players' contracts that, if you work out, you get a certain amount. And if you don't, you're going to get fined. It's as simple as that. And he also complained about that as well. I mean, if that's in your contract, bro, that's in your contract. Like it really don't matter if you're the strongest guy on your team. Like you still got to show up to practice. You still got to show up to that stuff. So he complained about that. And then the whole practice thing. Now we're up to the practice thing. If I'm Doc Rivers, I'm doing the same damn thing. He had been fined multiple times at this point for not showing up to practice. So now all of a sudden you show up because these fines are getting kind of damn hefty, and you ain't exactly getting paid to be there. So all that being said, I'd have put your ass up in there too, because you showed up to practice. End of the day.
Just for entertainment purposes, let's dive into this that I'm thinking of now. What's the difference between Allen Iverson missing practice and his whole practice, interview compared to what Ben Simmons did? Just let's just entertain the listeners.
Okay, so the difference is AI shot the damn ball. AI still came out and balled out during games. Yeah, we were still pissed that, AI did his own damn thing.
I hear you.
But at the end of the day, AI still showed up and proved why he was the best player on the damn team. You could arguably say that Ben Simmons is probably the best player on the Sixers at that time. You can arguably say that. It was him and Embiid pretty much for that top spot. But like it was shit like that for me like just impacts Ben Simmons' image. Like, bro, you're not a perfect player. You're not the guy. You still have flaws in your game, and they get exposed every freaking year in the playoffs. Max kind of alluded to it as well. Your free throw percentage stinks. It's horrible. You don't think you have things to work on? I understand. Look, and he kicked around once again the mental instability thing. And I can't say if he wasn't going through anything or not. That's not my position. All I'm saying is there's inconsistencies with what he says based upon what happened in the timeline of everything that happened. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Can we get into Tanner, real quick? Can we get into Doc Rivers here? Because I think he's a part of this where you talk about him coddling Ben Simmons, all these press conferences. Yeah. What is your take on that?
You know what, Max? That's funny you say. And that brings me into my next point. You mentioned coddling Ben Simmons. And in the interview, JJ Redick, I mean, he straight up says, Doc and Joel, they threw you under the bus. And Ben's kind of like, yeah, like that did happen. And when you look back at it, I mean, that is what happened, but it's accountability. That's the problem here with the Sixers. And if you're not going to take accountability, I mean, someone's going to give it to you, right? Someone's going to blame you. It's better to take it for yourself than get blamed or thrown under a bus.
Yeah.
Like this situation with Ben Simmons. So Doc Rivers, now we don't agree with everything Doc Rivers does, of course, with, game plan, rotation, etc. with all that. But for him to kind of be stern with Ben Simmons in practice, I kind of prefer that than have him be, Ben Simmons, my favorite. I'm going to coddle him, all this and that. I don't know if I would have chose a different maybe pathway as a fan watching this. Like, would Ben Simmons still be here if Doc and Joel didn't throw him under the bus? I'm not sure. I don't know if, Ben talks a lot about his, mental state. I think other things could have happened. He might still be on the Sixers, but not playing. But T, what are you thinking?
And look, Doc did what he had to do at that time. If you think about Ben Simmons' entire career, I mean, even the previous coach coddled him. He coddled them. He told them, he could do no wrong and things of that nature. When Doc Rivers came in, Doc Rivers at first coddled him. But I think that's the main issue with today's athletes, man. They get coddled too fucking much, man. Like I don't.
What we've heard, real quick, too, what we've heard about Ben Simmons is that's exactly his problem. He gets coddled by family members, his team around him. He didn't need to shoot the ball because he was being coddled. That's the whole problem with Ben Simmons being coddled.
Like it irritates me that today's athlete just needs to be coddled. Like I can remember, and I don't want to seem like that old guy, get off my lawn. I don't want to seem like that guy. But Like today's athletes, just like they irritate my soul. This is the reason. Like I'm about to go on a little bit of a rant. This is the reason why I hate this like participation trophy era that we're in. It's like you get credit for the things that you do, but like what about those things that you're not good at? Are you going to work towards those things? Like are you actually working towards, getting your ass up and like being a better player? Like Ben Simmons has been coddled his entire fucking career, and it has irritated my soul from day one. I do not like this era of coddled players. And this is a prime example right here of a coddled player who got what he wanted because he wanted it. And it pisses me off to no end to see more and more players like this coming out. You can't yell at players no more. You can't, tell them what they're bad at. What? Are you kidding me? Dog, Ben Simmons, I still stand by what I said earlier. You could have been one of, if not the best player in the NBA because LeBron James is on his way out. You could have at least rivaled Giannis. At least Giannis has worked on his shooting, damn it. Because Giannis does the same freaking things that you do. Same size.
If you guys could go back out and hindsight's 2020, but when we saw the trade go down with James Harden, right, and Ben Simmons and Drummond went, and we got Harden in here, we were all freaking out, we were all excited. What do you like when you look back at some of these players? When everybody comes into the league, they have their own personal egos from college or whatnot, but they come in there playing with grown men. They're happy to be here. They're excited on draft night. They're like, oh, I'm just happy to jump in there and tag along all I want. Then they start getting some pedigree in the league. They got the big egos again. Think about James Harden coming in here. Think about his ego. Couple of MVPs, couple of scoring titles and whatnot. And he's not the same player at the time. He was obviously banged up with the hamstring injury, but we were all just excited to get Ben Simmons out of town. But what do you think about going after, and again, the young studs coming up at a young age? Like they're basically, you're going to have to give up everything and go get them. But I think personally, the younger you can go out there and get, like, for example, Tyrese Maxey. This is a guy that came into the league day one. He just wants to win. He wants to help the team any way he can. I think you can argue Joel Embiid's obviously the MVP of the league and the team, but Maxey might be our most important player because this is a guy that's 21, 22 years old. I think he's younger than us. Obviously, I think he's still 21. And the ability to score, the just watching him on the court, the energy he brings. This goes back to the point, Tanner, when you have like that collective effort. If you had 10 Tyrese Maxeys on this team, think about that. Everybody would get along. Everybody would be having fun, joking, post-game interviews. All that stuff I think is important outside of the stuff he brings on the court, which is the scoring ability, the speed, the quickness, defense when he needs to, but also to get the fans involved. We saw him when he would step out, 3-point range and knock down those open triples.
Yeah.
Everything that it's everything that comes together there. And then you look and you have Harden's big ego, Tobias Harris, who wants to be one part of the big three when he's really just a B-plus player. And I think that's the stuff that really hurts the team. When Tyrese Maxey, I don't even think he pays attention to that stuff. I think he's out here just trying to win and having fun. But then you have Harden, who's not only thinking about stuff on the court, but all of his endorsement deals, all the money he's making off the court. Maxey will have that one day, but right now that's not his main focus. His main focus is just playing basketball. You see him post on social media. I'm in the gym every single day throughout the offseason. You don't see Harden doing that. You don't see Tobias doing that. Embiid, we can say all we want about his greatness. When push comes to shove and he's needed in the playoffs, regardless of it's his fault or not, injury related and not, he just hasn't been reliable. It's just a fact. He's been hurt. He's been unable to perform at the highest level. And I know he got elbowed in the face by Siakam last year, but he's just unreliable come playoff time. A couple years ago, he gets a stomach bug. It's just a snowball effect. The thumb injury cost him a little bit, not only of time, but his skill level. Tyrese Maxey is the future of the Sixers. And I'm happy we didn't trade him for Kevin Durant because this is a guy who's going to be an all-star in the league eventually, and he's going to be the face of the franchise once Embiid, who we know the wear and tear is coming on that body, 7'2" center. He's been in the league, 8 years now, whatever it is. Tyrese Maxey's a future, and I don't want to trade him for anything. I think this guy is perfect for Philadelphia. He gets it. The energy, the mindset, the community. He's always out there. I think this guy, as he continues to get older, is going to be the real deal.
I agree with you 1,000%. I definitely agree with you on Maxey, his mentality, the way he's embraced the fans, as you said. I mean, his work ethic. That's exactly the type of athlete that we as Philadelphia fans we love to see. We love to see, our guys get in the gym and get better and things of that nature, and,
Yeah.
and interact with the people. That's one of
Yep.
the things, man.
That's
Interaction.
exactly what works for the Philadelphia Eagles. That is exactly what works. The personality, the involvement with the fans, all that stuff,
Yeah.
and then transforming that off the field onto what they're doing on the field, just making a whole show of it, a fun time. They're having fun out there, of course, because they're winning. But
Right.
also, it's just with the Batman cape and all that stuff with the what happens in the media going into what happens with the game. I mean, it's all a connection, and when it's hidden, it's going right, and that's what makes it fun.
I totally.
100%. Yeah, and Maxey is one of those people who gets Philadelphia. And I think going back to your Ben Simmons point, Tanner, that was a guy who just didn't get the city at all.
No.
Definitely, and I want to get into a specific quote from Ben Simmons, and this really stuck with me. This was referring to his shooting abilities that we were kind of getting into, but he said, and I quote, "For a while, it was just so repetitive. You're hearing it all from the time every for the you're hearing it all the time from everyone. You're like, fucking hell, get off my case." And this is exactly the reason why it didn't work out with him and in Philly. And at the end, especially, it didn't work out.
Right.
But when you're looking at the best athletes in this city, and even the athletes who understand how the city works with the fan base and sports as a whole, it's a form of motivation when you hear boos and criticism from fans on the radio. And you look at Joel Embiid, I mean, this is one of the most loved athletes in the city, Joel Embiid. He's been booed, he's been criticized, and he's been getting better. I mean, we're talking about two MVP caliber seasons out of Joel Embiid with the injuries and everything. He's still trying to get better. And it's just so different from what we saw from Ben Simmons talking about telling people to get off his case and it got to him and stuff like that. If you kind of put on the reflective lenses and you're kind of just like, okay, you take what you want out of that criticism. You obviously you hear it all. Guys like Carson Wentz said he doesn't listen to sports talk radio and doesn't go on social media and see all that. He does. It's hard not to. I mean, it's impossible really to avoid all that talk. And that's the thing that separates Carson Wentz and the Ben Simmons from being successful in the city of Philadelphia. Taking that and twisting it into motivation is really what makes these Bryce Harpers, these Joel Embiids, even like Tyrese Maxey. He's seen the trade rumors.
Yeah.
What was he just going to stop playing his heart out for the
Hell.
Sixers just because of these rumors? No, he's
And hell.
out there. He's doing charity games. He's raising money for the city. He's playing, practicing. He's staying out there after practice hours, shooting around, getting better because whether he's on the Philadelphia 76ers or if he's on the Cleveland Cavaliers, he's still going to be playing his best.
Yeah.
But he loves the destination in Philadelphia. You can just see it. Like the Jalen Hurts, especially.
It's just about to
Jalen
say.
Hurts, prime example of just a hard worker, hearing the criticism, turning that around like, okay, this is supposed to be the year I'm supposed to prove it. Okay, bet. I'm over here 3-0 now. That's just what it is to be a Philadelphia athlete.
And at the end of the day, that's really all we ask for. I mean, look, we'll criticize our own athletes, of course. We'll boo you if we think that you can do better. But at the end of the day, it's not in a disrespectful tone. It is because we expect more from you and we know that you can do better. Because at the end of the day, let somebody else outside the city disrespect you, and we're gonna be the first ones jumping down their throat, telling them off. Don't talk about our athletes in this city. That's our job. Let us get on our athletes. Because that's the type of love that we have for our guys.
Even like the Michael Vick era and stuff like that. I mean, not only did he serve his time and, he had the public apologies and everything, but he was hearing it from away fans, from the own fans that did not want him to be in the franchise. I mean, everywhere. He was getting hell. He was hearing it. And, he
Yeah.
did deserve it. in some aspects. I mean, we're talking about the law and stuff like that, but just when we're talking about fan interaction, it really, I can't say it enough. It separates the great athletes from the ones who are going to get traded because they just can't make it here.
Let me ask you this question to wrap up this point here. You have the Sixer season coming around. We're all, we usually get excited when the season comes. I feel like we don't have that same energy this year for the most part because we're getting kicked in the balls every single year the last 5 years at the end of the day. But when you talk about James Harden, is he going to be the downfall of this team? Not only for this season or the season after, but just this whole process thing with Embiid. Because like I feel like with his ego coming in here, his skill level, sure, if this was 5 years ago, that would take over with all the drama and things like that because he can come in and just drop 40 a night with the step back threes and all. But since that's worn off and he's not the same player, but maybe mentally he still thinks he is, he's still going to take the same amount of shots. He's still going to try to step back threes. He's still going to drive in and try to draw the foul. He's not going to hustle back on defense when he doesn't get the call. All those effects and all those things are going to still rattle off. And at the end of the day, I just don't know. I don't know who in that locker room. It's going to have to be Embiid, I guess. That's going to pull him aside and be like, "Listen, either we get our shit in order and we get lined up and try to make a run here, or this thing's just not working out." And I don't know what Harden's contract is. I got to look back at it. I don't know if it was a 2-year contract with a player option or a team option or something like that. But if this thing doesn't work out this year, I would get rid of him immediately. And listen, if you have to take a talent level drop a little bit just to get a new personality in here, somebody to complement Maxi or whatnot, fine. But I just I think he's going to be an issue, and it's going to be not player based as far as Ben Simmons not being able to perform and shoot. I just think it's going to be more off the court, like just stuff we don't see behind the scenes. I just have a hunch like mid season there's going to be like things aren't going to be going well. The offense is sputtering and things just aren't clicking. And people are going to be pointing fingers at Doc Rivers. People are going to be pointing fingers at players on the team. I'm wondering if Doc Rivers makes it this whole season. I really do, because I think if we get like halfway through the season and we're not performing, somebody's going to get blamed, right? And you can't fire Harden, so Doc might be on the hot seat.
I mean, Max, I really hope that you're wrong about how you feel in your statements, because at the end of the day, I mean, just based off of what we've seen and from what I've heard, I mean, James Harden, he's lost 100 pounds in the offseason, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the good positive things, T. But
is that even possible?
I was just thinking that, but like it shouldn't have gotten to that point. But I want to believe. I truly do. I mean, does this team have enough pieces necessary to finally get over that second round hump? I mean, it remains to be seen. I'm trying to stay positive. I mean, hell, I'm trying to stay a whole lot more positive than I am about the Phillies. But I mean, I want to have hope. I want to have hope because it's hard. It's hard for a player to adjust to a team in the middle of in the middle of a season, and also Harden was dealing with hamstring injuries. Not to make excuses for him, but Harden was dealing with hamstring injuries and a bunch of other things, and having to adjust to different teammates. I'm hoping with this offseason that those guys gel together, they learn how to play together, and we're not, having to worry about, oh, is this team really, really legit or not?
I think we're screwed. Honestly.
Wow. This
is about winning the championship, Tanner. It's about winning the championship.
It brings me into the next few questions I wanted to ask you guys. First off, are we ready to start paying attention to the Sixers? I know we're talking about them right now, but are we going to keep tabs on the Sixers, or is it just like what we see in the media we're going to talk about? Like, is this all overhype of James Harden? Like, I don't even think that's physically possible for him to lose that 100 pounds. I have to see some records on that to really believe it. But is the media overhyping, the Philadelphia media, are they overhyping the James Harden scenario, saying, oh, he's back to what he has been when he was an MVP. Yeah. He's back to that state. Is that all overhype? What do we think?
Definitely overhype. You don't turn back the clock, right? This guy's not 28, 27 anymore. I mean, the reality is he's 32, 33 years old. Listen, does he suck? No. I mean, this guy's a Hall of Fame basketball player. I'm just saying it's about winning a championship, right? And this team isn't the Milwaukee Bucks or the Golden State Warriors. They're not even probably the Miami Heat at this point. That That team has fun. You watch the Heat play. You got Tyler Hero balling. You got Jimmy Butler, the veteran leader. You got Bam Adebayo doing his thing. I mean, that team is just solid, not only on the court, but their leader and Eric Spoelstra, well-run organization with Pat Riley. I mean, it's literally top to bottom. And this organization in Philly, there's egos, man. It's egos. It's Jimmy Butler. Listen, for as good as he brings that team together. It's not about Jimmy Butler. It's not about give me my 30 points, give me my 20 shots a game. It's about let's get a dub. And he says it too. He's all every time he gets interviewed post game. I mean, we saw that series against Miami. We interviewed Jimmy Butler. Hey, what PJ did the job tonight. PJ stepped up on defense. We got Tyler Hero came off the bench as a sixth man. He dropped 25 points. Really needed that tonight. Never about James or Jimmy Butler. He's always deflecting the praise. That's not something James Harden would do. It's just not whose personality is. You can't change somebody and their personality. It's just a different mindset.
I mean, at the end of the day, how much more attention can you give to a James Harden? I mean, like Max just said, he's 32, 33 years old. I mean, how much more hype can you give to the guy? I mean, we saw from last season that he's not exactly the same player that he was when he was.
One game, right? Game four.
Yeah.
He went off in the fourth quarter, right? But
I mean,
after that, it was like that,
he's not the same 27, 28-year-old, MVP level type of player that we've grown accustomed to seeing. He's not that type of player no more. He's really more or less now been, degraded to a role type of player. So it really depends on how much impact, he can really have with the team as now a role player. He's not the star anymore, and he can't be the star anymore because that body won't allow him to do it. So ultimately, it just comes down to that. I mean, can't really overhype a role player. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and this is all still all season talk. Is this even a team that really deserves to be having fun at this moment right now instead of getting to work? We're not seeing any of that really either. Like Max was saying, we don't know what Joel Embiid's doing in the off season. He is a family man now, so I assume he did take a bunch of time off to spend with his his child and his girl,
Yes.
and all that family stuff that surrounds that. James Harden, apparently he's been losing weight. Maxey, he's been playing. We've seen him locally playing in that classic they had just maybe a month or so ago.
Yeah, I think it was.
And just the other guys who were brought in, we're just not sure who they are really as a Sixer yet. Tobias Harris, is he still going to be that guy just slowing the team down in a way where it's like, how is he still on this team? Still, we're talking about Tobias Harris. But these are questions that are unfortunately going to be answered when the Sixers start actually playing basketball, regular season basketball again. As we move on to the Philadelphia Phillies. You guys remember the Phillies, that baseball team that we have in Philadelphia, who 2 weeks ago, 90% chance of making the playoffs. Today, about a coin flip, 50% chance to make the playoffs. I got an alert a little earlier that the game started, but still looks like they're in a delay for the rain in Washington. They're playing the Nationals again, playing the rest of that National Series. There's supposed to be a doubleheader. Not sure how that's going to work out because that second game is starting at 7:05. If they don't get started on this first game, I don't even know if they're sure who's pitching in this first game because Syndergaard's pitching that second game, correct?
Yep. You can't play two games without playing the first game there, Tanner.
Yep. 84-72, a half game ahead of the Brewers in that wild card race that they have put themselves in position-wise and games ahead. I mean, they lost 5 straight, swept by the Chicago Cubs before finally winning that first game against the Nationals. Their 3 best starters, 0 wins in that Cubs series.
Just couldn't get the offense going there, Tanner. All right.
It's the mistakes. It's the mistakes, too, made by an outfielder who the Phillies brought in by the trade deadline, who was supposed to produce defensively. Marsh. He had 2 drops in 4 games. And let's get in that Gene Segura fiasco. Was it really his fault all the way? Because, he went in the dugout. He apologized to Thompson. Coach Thompson said, that's my fault. And Thompson said, yeah, you're right. Was your fault. That's what I like to see
Yeah.
out of baseball coach, especially. But he turned around. He's on first base. Was it who was at bat? Maton. I believe Maton was at bat. It was a 3-1 count in the ump's hands. But Gene turned around, looked at the scoreboard, and saw that they gave Maton 4 balls. So he started walking to second base. The rookie pitcher at the time that was
Yeah.
pitching ran over to Gene, tagged him, and he's like, "What happened?" He's pointing
Right.
at the scoreboard. He's looking at the scoreboard. But in reality, it's you can't base your game off of the scoreboard. You have to know it. Baseball is one of the biggest mental sports in
Yeah.
out of all the sports. It's really up to you how things go and mental errors. They control the game, and you have to know what the count is of the batter. You have to know, or is it a walk? Am I safe to go to second base and all that? What do you guys think of this
Yeah.
Phillies team and the mistakes made? Are they going to be able to bounce back, win this wild card, and how are they going to play in the playoffs if they do make it?
First off, guys, I remember us having this discussion not too long ago about whether or not the Phillies were going to make the playoffs or not, and you guys were gun ho about them making the playoffs. You guys were like, it's impossible for them not to. Look at the streak that they're
I
on.
mean,
T,
I
you're a
wouldn't say it
goddamn
was
fool.
impossible back then.
Tay, come on. Don't do that to me.
Ain't
Don't
no
do that
don't
to
do
me.
that. Ain't no don't do that. Ain't there
It's
is
a
no
long season, Tay. It's a long
we're at
season.
the end of the damn season and we're struggling with a half game up in the damn playoffs for the last damn spot. If
In my
It's a
defense, I did
grind.
say that they were going to make it hard for themselves at the end, like they always do.
if they didn't extend the playoffs, like will we really even be talking about them being a playoff team at this point?
It's just killing me.
I'm
Just killing
telling
me,
you,
damn it.
like
Listen, here's the
come on,
thing.
man.
I think if we played the Cubs 10 games in a row, we could lose all 10 of those games. There's just some teams that have your number. I mean, it's just a fact. We had the Nationals number. If we go out there and win these 4 games against the Nats, would I be surprised? Hell no. We just destroyed them this year. We're 15-2 against this team. Baseball is a weird game. The Cubs just had the Phillies number. That's why I wasn't really freaking out. We lost the first game, lost the second game, and I was like, you know what? We're probably going to lose the third game. I mean, it's just how the things were going. But I saw the Nats up on the schedule. I was like, this is a team we have owned. This is a team we have to beat the next 3 games. And then we go down to Houston and we see what happens. But baseball, I'm not freaking out. Like, I don't think all of a sudden the Phillies forgot how to play. They forgot how to hit, forgot how to pitch. The pitching's been good. The pitching has been solid. The bullpen has been worn out. It's a long season. 162 games is a long season. The bullpen is tired. They're worn out. Anthony came back off the IL quickly. Robertson, ever since he threw like that 40 pitch inning or whatever, like a month ago, hasn't been the same at all. So just get in any way you can. And right now, we're playing the team we want to play, the worst team in baseball, the Washington Nationals. That's where we lie. We gave ourselves a chance. The Brewers got what? They got the Marlins, and then I don't know who they had the last series, but if the Marlins can help us out, it'd be great. And this is a Brewers team that they traded the best closer. I mean, Josh Hader, first 2 months of the season, April through June, he didn't give up a single run in like 18 appearances. 18 of 18 is save opportunities. They trade this guy away, and you think the Brewers are just they're punting on the season, and now all of a sudden here they are, they're roaring back. I mean, surprising to some, yes, but they still got a good team. It's going to be a dogfight. I still think the Phillies punched their ticket. I still do.
Max, that's the issue. This is a good team, but the issue is they're not playing like a good team. You get swept by the Cubs. You split with the Braves. You split.
What if they sweep the Nats though? What if they sweep the Nats?
They still have to play the Astros, who are playing their 3 aces, Max. They're playing Verlander, Valdez, McCullers.
That's if those guys even pitch. That's if those guys pitch. Because they run the division title. They want to rest those guys for the playoffs.
No, Dusty said he's putting his guys out there. He's putting them out there. They don't even have to. Max, they could put you and I out there. They really could, because they're all just waiting for the postseason.
The Phillies will make the playoffs. They could
put their scrubs out there.
The Phillies will make the playoffs this year. They're too damn good of a baseball team to just screw around and lose immediately this season. They can't do great throughout. It's up and down roller coaster of a season. They're gonna do it this year. I'm telling you, they're getting into the playoffs. They have the tiebreaker over the Brew Crew. They're gonna get in, and the reason being the schedule. I still think they can go down there and win 2 games in Houston, and I still think they can sweep out this Nats team.
All right. I got the timestamp written down. If they don't make it, just know I'm recalling those same exact words to you.
Fine. You can do whatever you want to. You can recall whatever you want to recall. I'm just telling you how it's going to be. The Phillies are going to the postseason. They're going.
I'm going to say the same thing because that's what I've been saying this whole season. One of these times it's got to be right. We've been saying it for the past three seasons. We've been so sure this team's going to make the playoffs. Still, any word on if this game's actually happening right now?
I'm still. It looks like the information that I got looks like they're playing, but you say they're still in a rain delay.
No,
So
let's check right now.
Yeah, turn it on
in the
as
middle of the
Max
pod.
turns on the
Yeah, they're
TV.
playing first and second, 2 out, top of the first, and boom is up at the plate. Listen, they're playing against Anibal Sanchez today. Anibal Sanchez going on 47 years old. He is not good. So they got to get the dub today, and they will because this team, like I said, will go to the playoffs, and it looks like they'll match up with the St. Louis Cardinals. Man, what a game that would be. Listen, we're talking about a St. Louis Cardinals team that earlier this season hit 4 consecutive home runs off Kyle Gibson. Let's not forget.
They got Albert over there.
Wild pitch. Would you look at that?
Absolutely
Kyle
raking.
Schwarber. We're up 1-0.
Boom.
Schwarber limping a little bit though as he slid there. Let's hope he's all right. I want to. Let's not say anything.
You know
else.
what? I don't know if anyone else can get this, but I think when the Phillies go on the mound, they're just going to be figuring out who the pitcher is, because I don't have it in here. But who's going to be the pitcher? Does anyone know who the pitcher is for this first game?
Man, I'll tell you what. I don't know, but I do know that the players look cold as hell. I mean, wow, is it cold there in Washington?
Yeah, it's freezing.
I'm sure that's going to be well, when you look back to the World Series against what was it, the Rays, and they had that rain delay.
Yes.
Was it the Rays or the Yankees? They had that rain delay, which kind of changed the whole momentum of the series.
Kyle Gibson is on the bump today, Tanner. Gibby, and Schwarber's
let's
shaking
see how
up.
Kyle Gibson can do. Syndergaard later at 7:05 apparently will be the second start time. But let's go on to the Philadelphia Eagles. And Max and I, we had the Bird's Nest go out yesterday. And for those listening, if you haven't yet watched or listened to the Bird's Nest, go on to our profile, the Philly Experience Podcast, and go click on the Bird's Nest and hear what we had to say about the Eagles and the Commanders and what we are looking forward to the Jaguars. But we have our guy T, who works for WIP Sports Radio. He's been hearing the callers, all the opinions. T, what are your thoughts about this matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars and Dougie P's return to the link?
Well, first off, let me catch up to our current week. It's hard not to be excited about this team. I mean, this team has exceeded expectations and then some. I mean, Jalen Hurts is playing literally like an MVP. I mean, the odds of him winning the MVP, I think he's only second to Lamar Jackson at this point in the odds.
Lamar Jackson, absolutely ridiculous.
It's at and first off, I'm gonna tell you this right now. Hey, pay Lamar Jackson. Baltimore, stop being stupid. Pay Lamar Jackson. Just wanted to get that out there. Secondly, this team as a whole, they just enjoy playing with each other. They enjoy playing with each other as a group. They enjoy they love being around each other. You can tell that they're playing for one another. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The Lions game scared me a little bit, but it turns out that the Lions are actually a pretty decent team. Not gonna front. So, and then to beat the Vikings the way that they did, and Jesus, they just annihilated Carson Wentz 9 times. The Eagles are just disrespectful. 9 times in the name of Nick Foles. That was just disrespectful. But anyway, this matchup against Jacksonville, this is going to be probably their toughest matchup to date. Doug Peterson has this Jacksonville team breathing a new breath of life. They are playing more or less like a unit. Trevor Lawrence actually looks like the number 1 overall pick finally, now that he doesn't have Urban Meyer, in his ear. This Jacksonville team is a scary team. They really should not overlook them. Now, because of the weather, that's going to go down apparently tomorrow. I do not expect a whole lot of passing the ball from both sides. I'd be shocked if Doug Peterson still makes Trevor Lawrence throw the ball out there, knowing that we have ball hawks on our side of the ball. I would be honestly shocked if you can't expose the Eagles defense against the run. But overall, I think it's going to be a tough game. I think we're going. We're going to be the ones that come out as the victor, because if the passing game doesn't work, we can always rely on the run game between Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts. I mean, this team is just, they are playing like an absolute juggernaut. They are the only team currently in the NFL that's undefeated. Guys, let's be honest here. We didn't predict this. We did not predict this in the beginning of the season.
I mean, if we look back at our record predictions,
Don't do that.
I certainly did predict this. Actually, what I was planning on doing is putting our record predictions out on our story now, the rest of the week, because those first 3 games, they weren't. I think we all agreed on those, maybe for at least first 2, or 2 out of the 3 games. But what I'm gonna do now every week is try to put our record prediction out there, and I'm gonna start doing our 3 score predictions on our story and see who gets the closest. But sort of a selfish question I have for you. Someone that has Devontae Smith on his fantasy football team. Do I play Devontae? Because it's mostly a run game, but you have to expect at least, 4 passes his way, right?
Oh yeah, I do expect a couple of passes to go to Devontae's way. I don't think it's going to be an all running game. I would feel confident, honestly, starting him. I would not start him. He's still going to put up some valuable points for you. He's not going to be a big monster like he has, like he has been these past couple games. But I do think that he is going to put up points for you. So I'm not saying, bench, bench all the right receivers. Don't do that. But like, it's just not going to be as much, point production as per usual. That's all.
Yeah, fair enough. And I am playing against a Tyreek Hill who already, played Thursday, 25 points on the board. So I'm going to need some magic out of one of my players. But getting into the Eagles more with game plan wise, Max, I had talked about this on the Bird's Nest, but you have Mike Codwell on the other side for the Jaguars, defensive coordinator. Last season in the playoffs, that Jalen Hurts was shut down in against the Buccaneers. Codwell, who played for the Eagles back in the day, was the linebackers coach for the Buccaneers. He was responsible for shutting down Jalen Hurts and the game plan. So he has game planned against Jalen Hurts before in a way that worked. When you see Jalen Hurts there, when he has to, it's going to be interesting, because before you found out the weather, you're like, this is a game where Jalen Hurts has to throw the ball around. He has to prove his arm, because they're going to lock him down, keep him in the pocket from rushing. But, maybe the focus shifts on how Miles Sanders does now, because the Eagles, they're going to be running the ball constantly. Can Miles Sanders hold on to the ball? He's had problems with fumbling. It's going to be slippery out there. The ball is going to be wet. Is this game just going to be a field goal fight? Trying to kick a field goal in that the wind and the rain is going to be hard, but a very low scoring game. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one, to be completely honest with you. I think James Robinson and Travis Etienne are going to get involved on the ground. Not a ton of passes, but then again, you still have weapons on the outside. Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, and Christian Kirk. They've had solid seasons so far. Trevor Lawrence continuing to develop under Doug Peterson. I think it's a perfect match made in heaven with those two, especially for Lawrence, a young quarterback developing in his career. But, I think when you talk about the defensive side of the ball, that's going to be huge. I mean, you have Devin Lloyd and Trayvon Walker, 2 top picks for the Jaguars, both having great seasons so far. So it's going to be tough. Again, it's going to be a sloppy game. We've seen the weather too before. It looks like it's going to pour rain. All of a sudden, it just turns out to be cloudy and cold. It could go really either way. I'll tell you what, though, if you have fantasy kickers, I don't think you want either of these guys in your lineups in this one, because even if they get the opportunity, they can definitely be going wide right or left.
Not only speaking of Christian Kirk, I'm glad that you actually mentioned that. That is one matchup I think we do need to keep an eye on. Word came down, like it was either yesterday or Thursday, that Avonte Maddox has been ruled out for this game. So
Yeah.
Christian Kirk is their very, very talented primary slot receiver, and Avonte Maddox does man the slot. That is his position. So, yeah, we're going to see, how Jonathan Gannon, plans on replacing, that production that Avonte Maddox provides in that slot. Are you going to move Gardner Johnson to that slot? Yes, he can play that. Are you going to, bring a corner up from the depth chart like Zach McPherson, possibly?
Right.
It's, I'm curious to see how that's going to work out tomorrow.
Yeah, and just a quick segue. We talked about, having fun on teams when we're referring to the Sixers and how it works for the Eagles. Jason Kelsey just posted about an hour ago on Instagram, and I don't know if this was a fan-made picture or not, but he now refers to himself as the sexy Batman. We talk about the Husky, the big Batman, and the skinny Batman and all that with that, but then the fast Batman as well. Now we have the sexy Batman, and he's been a guy who's been saying he wants that cape on the sideline. And it kind of brings us to college football, right, Max? When you have the the turnover chain and all that stuff. Now you have the Batman cape for any touchdown score, maybe. Will Miles Sanders be keeping that cape on the whole game? We'll have to see. I'll be in the stands, probably freezing, soaking wet.
You picked a horrible game to go to, my friend.
Well, I got season tickets.
Go to all of them, baby. Go to all of them.
I'm at every game. But yeah, it's going to be a cold one. Any final thing you guys have to say on the Eagles, or should we just get right into our score predictions?
You know what, man? This team has really shocked me. I'm still there's my coworkers at WIP, in particular, Rob Ellis. They're trying to convince me and convert me into believing that Jonathan Gannon is actually a decent defensive coordinator. I'm not ready for that just yet. I'm not ready to say that just yet, but I will say that he has impressed me over the last couple of weeks. And, hey, if he continues to impress, then hey, yeah, then maybe he'll get my full support. But as of right now, I'm not there yet. Jonathan Gannon.
Okay.
Hard to argue.
Let's start off, Max. Let's start with you. Score prediction.
All right, Jags come in here. Gonna be a lower scoring game. Do either one of these teams reach 20 points? Is the main question. I say they do. I say the Birds win 21-16. 21-16.
I'm pretty much right there with you, but instead of 23, I'm gonna have them at 20 points.
21 T. 21-16. It's not 23, because if I get this exactly right, I'm gonna need some damn respect. I can't wait to say I'm right.
Yeah, but your takes are not very respectful. Let's be honest. Anyway,
man.
I'd say 20.
The Nats, baby. Here come the Nats as the show closes. 1-1. We're tied.
I say 20-16. I say 20-16. The Birds pull it off.
All right, boys, don't laugh at me. This score prediction. I think we're gonna see a 12-yard field goal to start the game.
12-yard
with the Eagles. They're not gonna get it done in the red zone.
To kick a field goal from the 2-yard line. That's a new one.
That's the stupidest.
Now I'm thinking end zone plus 12 yards. That's
all right.
I think someone's gonna miss an extra point. I'm gonna give them 15-10. It's gonna be 15-10 Eagles.
You got a low
15-10. That's got to be that's probably a rare score. I don't know.
10. All right. I hope you get a couple of drinks in there, because that'll be a tough one to watch.
I'm expecting that. I'm also expecting Xfinity Live to be pretty lit.
Let's go,
Sunday.
baby.
Everyone's gonna be undercover, riding that bull all day. That's gonna wrap up this show for us. Send us away as we watch the Phillies probably crush our dreams.
If you guys missed any of this episode, you can always go to philly-experience.simplecast.com, available on all major downloadable platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, the entire shebang. First off, I didn't get a chance to say it during the show, but prayers up for Tua. He should not have been in that game from the very beginning. He was concussed on Sunday and then slung on his head on Thursday. Just Prayers up to him. Hope for a speedy recovery.
Ooh, the Dolphins are in trouble.
Dolphins, this is on you.